Well, just by way of introduction, and thank you very much for joining us. I'm Cleland Snedden, I'm the Constituency Returning Officer, and I'd like to welcome you obviously to this pre-nomination awareness session for the 2020 Scottish Parliamentary election. Hopefully you'll find today's session useful and informative, and it will establish a bit of a relationship should you require any information in future. I'd also like to introduce you to Elaine Knudsen, who's our Deputy Constituency Returning Officer, and for those who have been involved in elections in this area previously, you'll know Elaine from previous elections, and probably, I would think now, the most experienced elections official in Scotland, if I'm not mistaken. So, as well as ourselves, obviously you'll be aware that there's quite a big team that gets put together for electoral events, and there's numerous others involved in the running of the election. Details of the key contacts that you might need are contained within your pre-nomination information pack at Appendix 1. So, in addition to the recording of the session, a note of the session has also been prepared, and we'll make that available to you as soon as possible after this session, just so you've got a further reference guide. And I'll just run through some of the aims for the session and what we're going to cover during the time we're here. The one thing I would say, for those who are familiar with Teams, you'll understand that. If there's anybody who's not, I'll just talk you through one or two of the functions within the system. So if people can remain muted, so we don't have background noise during the session, unless you're speaking, that would be ideal. If you want to raise any questions or a comment as we go through this, if you can maybe raise the hand icon, and we'll try and pick up on the question as we go along. There will be an opportunity at the end of the kind of run through of the information for us to take any comments or questions. But as I said, it's a relatively small group we have here, and let's be reasonably informal. So if there's something as we're going through, just stop us, raise the hand, and I'll try and bring you in as appropriate. So the aims for this session are summarised on the agenda that's been circulated, but I'll do a quick run through those. And firstly, to advise you of the COVID measures that are in place during the nomination process. And one thing that's an obvious truism is that safety around this election is the absolute fundamental principle, and we'll run through some of the detail around that and at subsequent sessions. We'll provide some information on standing at this election and on the nomination process itself. We'll highlight to you some key dates on the timetable of arrangements. We'll discuss what happens after the close of nominations. We'll provide some information on local contacts and arrangements at the election. And then, critically, as we mentioned, provide an opportunity for us to ask any questions. So I'll run through some of the detail now. Some of you will be quite well familiar and be well versed in the pre-nomination information, but there are substantial differences in this entire electoral event as a result of the pandemic. So I'll try to ensure that you're signposted to some of those changes. But for the benefit of all attendees, what I'll do and cover is what you'll need to know to assist you in your considerations as we head towards nomination day. You'll appreciate that the current pandemic means that there are a number of changes to existing arrangements, and I'll briefly cover tonight some of those measures in place in relation to the nominations. So this is the first of a number of briefing sessions prior to the poll date, and at subsequent sessions I will cover COVID measures in relation to the poll, postal votes and to the count. For those of you that are familiar with election events, I would highlight that many of those arrangements might be different from those you've experienced previously. There's a reasonable amount of information provided to you within the pack that I mentioned, the pre-nomination information pack, and also the nomination pack, and hopefully you'll find that useful. And as I work through the agenda, just use that raise hand icon at any point, and we'll draw you in. So, turning to roles, Constituency Returning Officer and the Electoral Registration Officer responsibilities. And quite often there's a little bit of confusion between the role of the constituency returning officer and that of the electoral registration officer. And down south, for example, quite often those posts or those roles are filled by the same person. So that's sometimes where some of the confusion comes from. But in Scotland, that's not the case, and the two roles are legally distinct. In Scotland, the constituency returning officer is often the chief executive of the local authority, but not always. And I think, Aileen, this time round, there's about 4 local authority areas where it's not the chief executive of the council. And the constituency returning officer is personally responsible for the running of the election and can appoint deputies with full or specific powers to assist. The constituency returning officer has in place an election team. So here, that's led by Aileen, and Aileen's team will carry out the day-to-day running of the election, and they're likely to be your first point of contact as you go through this process. So as constituency returning officer, it's my aim to ensure that candidates, agents, media and the public accept and have confidence in the election arrangements and the results. This now extends to include safe systems of work, each step of the process of administering the election for all stakeholders. I need to ensure that the election is transparent and safe to those who are scrutinising and observing the process. So again, part of your roles. I need to ensure that assistance is given to candidates and agents to understand what's involved at the count and provide clear and helpful information to candidates and agents both prior to and during the various events. The number of queries or complaints that may arise through an electoral event is inevitably reduced if we manage to deliver the appropriate advice and assistance and support. So to assist in achieving the above, if there's anything you require, please contact me as constituency returning officer or the election team as soon as any issues arise, and that will help us address them for you. The electoral registration officer, the ERO, however, in Scotland, that's appointed by the local authority, and that role is responsible for the preparation and maintenance of the register of electors, and that the list of absent voters in their area is compiled. So the ERO for South Lanarkshire is Gary Bennett. Gary is the assessor at the Lanarkshire Joint Valuation Board. And there are some key deadline dates that you'll want to be aware of set through the electoral registration officer. And these are as follows. The deadline for new postal votes and postal proxy applications, and for any changes to existing postal or proxy arrangements, is 5 p.m. on Tuesday, the 6th of April this year, 2021. Registration deadline is midnight on Monday, the 19th of April 2021. Cancellations to existing postal and proxy arrangements is 5 p.m. on Tuesday, the 20th of April 2021. 2 more. Deadline for new proxy applications is 5 p.m. on Tuesday, the 27th of 2021. And then finally, the deadline for emergency proxy applications is 5 p.m. on the day of the poll on Thursday, the 6th of May 2021. In relation to others who are involved in election arrangements, in addition to the election team in South Lanarkshire, there are a number of key bodies who are involved in the election process. Firstly, the Electoral Commission, and they're responsible for the registration of political parties, campaign election expenses, reporting on election arrangements, and providing guidance. And there is a large range of many helpful documents you'll find on their website at www.electoralcommission.org.uk. The Scottish Government's the next agency. They're responsible for the legislation for this election. And I'd like to make you aware of a couple of appointments that I make for contractors to support the election process. So I have appointed Criticom as a contractor who will produce our poll cards, and IDOC's Elections as a contractor who will produce the ballot papers and postal voting packs for the 4 parliamentary constituencies with their respective 3 regions that cover South Lanarkshire. I also make an appointment to Royal Mail, who provide a mailing service to candidates, and their documentation is contained within the nomination pack detailing this service. And then finally, I want to highlight the role of Police Scotland and note that police officers will support by visiting polling places periodically during polling day and will attend the count and address any issues that I draw to their attention through the election team. In terms of election legislation, Appendix 2 of the pre-nomination pack highlights the relevant legislation required for the Scottish parliamentary elections, and that's been prepared hopefully to be helpful. However, it is not exhaustive, and you should therefore take your own legal advice should the need arise. Voters will be asked to vote using one cross, an X, in the box next to the candidate of their choice in the constituency ballot paper, and also one cross, an X, in the box next to the party or individual candidate of their choice in the regional ballot paper. So in South Lanarkshire, our parliamentary constituencies and regions, as constituency returning officer, I'm responsible for conducting the election arrangements for the following constituencies: Clydesdale County constituency, East Kilbride Borough constituency, Rutherglen Borough constituency, and Hamilton, Larkhall and Stonehouse Borough constituency. Where a constituency covers more than one local authority area, it is for the Secretary of State to direct which local authority constituency returning officer will run the election. That's the case for the Uddingston and Bells Hill constituency, where the larger part of the constituency falls within North Lanarkshire Council, and therefore the regional returning officer is Des Murray, who's my equivalent, the Chief Executive and constituency returning officer at North Lanarkshire. In relation to regional nomination arrangements, these will be dealt by the regional returning officers as follows. For the Clydesdale constituency, that's in the South Scotland region, the regional returning officer will be Gavin Stevenson, who's the Dumfries and Galloway Council Chief Executive. For the East Kilbride constituency and also the Hamilton, Larkhall and Stonehouse constituency, they're both within Central Scotland region. And the regional returning officer is Des Murray, Chief Executive at North Lanarkshire Council. And then finally, in terms of the Rutherglen constituency covering the Glasgow region, Anne-Marie O'Donnell, who's the Chief Executive of Glasgow City Council, will perform the role as regional returning officer. So moving through into the election timetable. The timetable for a Scottish parliamentary election spans 35 working days. A copy of the main dates are provided in the nomination pack, but I'll just highlight a couple of key dates. The notice of election was published on Monday of this week on the 15th of March. The nomination period began on Tuesday of this week, Tuesday the 16th of March, and nominations can be lodged any weekday between 10 AM and 4 PM until the statutory deadline of 4 PM on Wednesday, the 31st of March. Pre-checks can be carried out during normal working hours, and this is an important point. You'll understand this in relation to the COVID context we are running the election. I would strongly encourage you to do this nomination process and do the checks as early as possible and make an appointment to ensure staff are in hand to deal with you without any delay. So if we know when you're coming in, if we can do the pre-checks, then we can smooth the process and we can make it as easy as possible for you. So I would encourage you to do that as early as possible. The key dates regarding registration and absent voting have already been highlighted to you. So eligibility. So can you stand for election? To stand for an election, you must be at least 18 years of age. You must either be a British citizen, an Irish citizen, an eligible Commonwealth citizen, or a qualifying foreign national. There is, however, no requirement in law for you to be a registered elector in Scotland. And finally, and obviously, you must not be disqualified. You must not be disqualified from standing. And matters of eligibility or disqualification are as detailed in the nomination pack. You can stand as a candidate for both a constituency and a region, and that is provided that the constituency is within that region. So the pre-nomination and nomination packs we've mentioned a couple of times. In the pre-nomination and nomination packs, there are numerous documents regarding the process. For the purposes of tonight, I'm going to highlight just a few key points. So as part of the pre-nomination pack, we've mentioned Appendices 1 and 2. Appendix 3 relates to COVID measures, and the document contains guidance on the measures being put in place for the issue, the pre-checks and the lodging of nomination papers and briefings. In summary, the changes will include COVID measures being in place to deliver a safe election, and I require all stakeholders to respect those measures. The safety of electors, candidates, agents and the staff involved in the election process are absolutely paramount in running this election. And I really do want to be clear on my expectations that those measures are fully adhered to. And I would look for your support in ensuring colleagues who are with you through that election process are aware of those measures and those expectations. Appointments for issue, pre-checks and lodging, as I mentioned, is strongly encouraged. Electronic communications and documentations will be in place as far as we can possibly do so. Briefings will carry out, as we're doing today, online, and registrations beforehand, we would ask you to sign up for those events. A deposit of £500 using a UK banker's draft or by credit or debit card is required. We are saying cash is not encouraged. It's not prohibited, but if possible, we can take payment in any other way. Your deposit will be returned only if you receive more than 5% of the total valid votes cast in the constituency. In Appendix 4 of the pre-nomination pack, that details further information on each of the documents in the nomination pack. And again, just to highlight some of the specifics detailed in the document. You will have a notice of situation of polling places. So there are 321 South Lanarkshire polling stations. That's the rooms that you actually vote in. And they are within 138 polling places, i.e. the buildings that you go to vote. Polling places which serve more than one constituency are highlighted in the document, along with details of where there have been changes to polling places since the UK election in 2019. So if you're familiar with the previous locations, I would encourage you to take a run through and just note where there are some changes. I'll discuss some of those details in a little bit more detail when we come to the post-nomination session. Guidelines for display of campaign material, and I would remind everyone that the Council does not permit fly posting on street furniture or the display of A-frames outside polling places. Please ensure your supporters and agents are aware of this, and I would be grateful if you could help ensure that they adhere to this. In relation to a notice of withdrawal of nomination, if you lodge your nomination and decide at a later date that you wish to withdraw, you must give notice in writing, and the withdrawal form is contained within the pack that's been distributed. And this must be returned by 4 p.m. on Wednesday, the 31st of March. If you need help with any particular document within the pack, please feel free to ask after the meeting or make contact with the election office. So what happens after the close of nominations? I have scheduled a post-nomination session on Microsoft Teams for Thursday, the 1st of April at 5:30, and that will provide you with a list of candidates standing in each constituency. That is the statutory notice of poll and the statement of persons nominated. Apologies if you're getting a little bit of feedback. There's some sirens going off in the background here. You will also be provided a list of election agents for each of the candidates. and the appointment of polling, counting and postal vote agents forum to allow you to request passes, which I'd ask you to return as quickly as possible to allow a final allocation of passes to be determined. You will all obviously automatically be invited to attend the briefing sessions to ensure you're aware of the next steps being taken by me for the poll, for the postal votes and for the count. So moving on to some of the more practical arrangements. In relation to poll cards were dispatched to the Royal Mail on Tuesday of this week for those who had registered before Friday, the 5th of February 2021. And that's in good time to inform voters of the deadlines for voting arrangements. Poll cards will also be sent out to those registered between Monday the 8th of February 2021 and Monday the 29th of March 2021, and on Monday the 5th of April, and those registered between Tuesday the 30th of March and those by midnight on Monday the 19th of April 2021. They'll be sent out on Friday the 23rd. So those dates, again, we will confirm back to you, but just to give you a summary at this session. In relation to postal votes, there are currently round about 40,000 postal voters in the 4 South Lanarkshire constituencies. The deadline for postal vote applications has already been highlighted as 5 p.m. on Tuesday, the 6th of April 2021. Application forms are downloadable from the Electoral Registration Office website or from www.gov.uk/register to vote. In relation to the issue of postal votes, it's intended that postal votes will be sent first class by Wednesday the 14th of April 2021 for applications processed up to Wednesday the 31st of March. In relation to the opening of postal votes, those will be opened from Monday the 19th of April 2021, and more details on those opening sessions will be provided in due course. However, postal voters are required by law to provide their signatures, unless waived, and date of birth on the postal voting statement, which is returned with their ballot paper. The signature and date of birth are compared with those provided at the time of applying for a postal vote, and if either of those don't match or there is information missing, then the postal vote will be rejected and not included in the count. I'm keen to ensure as few postal votes are rejected as possible, and I put in place arrangements to raise awareness of the procedures that will be followed. Again, you will want to ensure you're aware of the Electoral Commission's Code of Conduct on the handling of postal votes, where you're asked to adhere to 2 key principles. First of all, in relation to this and the actual event itself, is to uphold the secrecy of the ballot, and you should not place yourself in a situation where your honesty or integrity can be questioned. In relation to the count itself, the post-nomination awareness session will provide a lot more detail on the poll, the postal votes and the count, but for the moment you will probably want to be aware of the following arrangements. So the count venue will be at the John Wright Sports Centre, and the centre itself will cover the East Kilbride and Hamilton, Larkhall and Stonehouse constituencies. However, adjacent to the Sports Centre, the East Kilbride Bowling Club will be the venue for the Clydesdale and Rutherglen constituencies. Both of those are located on Calderwood Road, East Kilbride. The timing of the count is substantially different from what we're familiar with. The count will be a daytime count. There will not be an overnight count following the poll, and that will commence on Friday the 7th of May at 9 AM and will continue, commencing on Saturday the 8th of May, 9 AM. The constituency counts will be organised as follows. Day 1, which is Friday the 7th of May, we will undertake the count in respect of the Hamilton, Larkhall and Stonehouse constituency, and that will be in the John Wright Sports Centre, and the Rutherglen constituency, and that will be in the East Kilbride Indoor Bowling Club. Those 2 constituency counts will be run to a completion and a declaration on the Friday. Day 2, which is Saturday the 8th of May, the East Kilbride constituency count will be undertaken in the John Wright Sports Centre, and the Clydesdale constituency in the East Kilbride Indoor Bowling Club. And again, those counts will be drawn to a conclusion on the Saturday with a declaration. We obviously share information with the regional returning officer in terms of the regional ballots, and details of their arrangements for declaration will be shared by the regional returning officers. In relation to the attendance at the count, and again, I want to highlight a difference from what we are used to, and the attendance will be significantly restricted as the returning officers get. There would be, as returning officers guests, invites will not be issued, and I have written to a number of parties who routinely receive a returning officer's guest pass to advise that this election event will be different. Only those issued with a pass will gain access to the count, and a pro forma will be provided at the next briefing session for candidates and agents for this purpose. My intent is to ensure that the only people in the count are the staff who are undertaking the count and candidates and agents who are there to observe and scrutinise the electoral event. So I suppose in local parlance, no hangers on. And the reason for that is the numbers will be strictly limited to the capacity of the venues. And I want to maximise those who are there for a legitimate role within the electoral event.
Can I just be clear on that? So it's
Graham,
candidate.
Yeah.
Sorry, Claire.
Yeah.
Candidate and agent, and that's it.
Yeah, and sorry, just to be absolutely clear, no. What I'm saying is candidates, agents, and counting agents. So you will be. What I want to do is maximise the number of people who are there with a legitimate role for you to scrutinise the process. What I'm saying is those who routinely would have come to electoral events in the past, supporters, those who like to be involved in the events but don't have a role, I cannot accommodate them because of the physical capacity of the buildings. So it's to maximise the number of people who are there on your behalf to scrutinise the process. Is that okay, Graham?
How many counting agents?
Sorry, that's what I'm saying. We will work that through once I know how many candidates, because the capacity of the building will dictate that.
Okay.
Does that mean there'll be no media?
No, there will be television crew, but if you are aware of the layouts for the event, we have an upper gantry where the television crew will be there. If there are to be media interviews, those will have to take place out with the venue, and we are liaising with BBC, STV, and Sky and others. Yeah, is that okay, guys?
You.
Yeah. So, as I said, more detail on the detail of that when we do further briefings, but I just wanted to signpost those because that is quite a difference from previous events. So arrangements for counting, information will be provided at the next session, and more detailed information on the count at the final briefing session, which we will hold on Thursday the 29th of April at 5:30. In relation to candidate spending limits at the election, electoral information has been provided as at Thursday the 25th of February. However, the expenses limit will be updated and provided to you after Wednesday the 24th of March, which, as you know, is the last date for the publication of the notice of election in the and that's in the post-nomination pack. So please refer to Part 3 of the Electoral Commission guidance with regard to spending at elections. You'll want to have close scrutiny on that for your own purposes. In relation to public awareness campaigns, in addition to the national campaign to promote democracy, South Lanarkshire has their own plan, which includes a range of local media awareness and local publicity. So I would signpost you to the Reporter article in the South Lanarkshire View section, and you can see that online at www.southlanarkshireview.scot. We have a series of information on the website, including videos, and I'm just going to give a bit of a name check to some of our young people who have supported us with producing a set of animations that are specifically targeted to new and younger voters to encourage their participation. I think it's extremely well done, but I am biased. We also publish statutory notice at public information points where possible, and we have undertaken work with minority groups within the South Lanarkshire Council area, again to ensure their equal participation. We've provided information to registered care homes, and we have set up, as you'll be aware, election and electoral registration office helplines. But this complements a series of national products which are also being rolled out, and there's a number of national arrangements that are underway, some of which you may already have seen in relation to press releases, radio advertisements, TV campaigns, and partnership work we do with corporate, public and voluntary organisations. Again, all of which is intended to try and maximise the exposure of this electoral event and to encourage participation. So what's next beyond this? This completes the kind of detail we were going to cover for today's session, but I'll flag up the next two sessions, which is Thursday the 1st of April at 5:30 to provide a post-nomination briefing and to cover the post-nomination documentation and information. Secondly, Thursday the 29th of April at 5:30, and that session will give us an opportunity to focus on the polling day and what to expect, and the count arrangements, and again, what to expect. And I'd encourage, even if you are familiar with electoral events and you've been over the course quite a number of times, I'd encourage you to attend these sessions to ensure you're aware of the plans leading up to and on polling day and at the count, and that you're able to share that information with the colleagues who will support you through the election. So I'll maybe put a full stop in there. I know that's a lot of information to share, most of which is covered within the packs that you have, but I'm more than welcome just to any comments or any questions that any attendee today wants to raise with us. If you can maybe just pop the hand icon, it'll give me a chance to just work out who wants to come in. So can I open it up to any colleague, just any questions from today? So I'll just take them in the order I've got them. So Graham Simpson first, and then Mary.
Yeah, thanks for that briefing, Cleland. They're always really useful. So I'm going to ask you a question that it's about the regional vote and the count. And I know you're not involved in that. Well, you are involved in it because Des Murray's in charge. When are we going to get the sort of result for that? Is that also on the Saturday?
So for the Hamilton constituency, Hamilton etc. constituency, we will have concluded our part of that and fed the information on the Friday. So I can't speak for Des as to when he'll be in a position to declare on the regional event. That will depend on his organisation of his count and when he'll have all the information in place. For other regional returning officers, Gavin Stevenson, who's in the Dumfries area and covering that southern part, my understanding is that he's looking at a 3-day count, not a 2-day count, to collate that. So it is possible, but still to be confirmed by that RRO, that he will not be in a position to declare until the Sunday on his regional count. And again, in relation to Glasgow, this area will have concluded its count and feed to Glasgow in respect of the Rutherglen constituency on the Friday. But again, it would need to be confirmed by the RRO, who's Anne-Marie O'Donnell for that area, when she's going to be able to make that declaration. So Graham, I'm kind of not answering your question, but I'm kind of telling you where our bit will be done. And we need to wait those RRO plans to tell us when they're going to be in a position to declare. If they share that with us earlier, we'll share it with candidates here.
Okay, are you counting the regional ballots at the same time as constituencies?
Yeah, we're going to run constituencies to a death on the respective days we've shown. So we will do constituency and regional for a particular constituency on the days that we've mapped out. So our bit will be done in terms of the RRO feeds. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mary, can I bring you in?
Yeah, thank you. I just have a quick question about postal votes. We're obviously expecting a lot more this year, and I think you said, Cleland, that you will look at the date of birth and the signature. I just have some concerns about that, because obviously there's going to be a lot of people who haven't used it before, and to be frank, whose signatures might not always be the same, particularly if they're young people. So is that for testing the legitimacy of each vote, or is that something else?
Yeah, and I'll give a feed to Aileen in a wee second, but your timing's impeccable on the question, because, for example, we undertake forensic training for the staff involved, because older people, well, it's not just older people or younger people, it's people, sometimes their signatures change over time and so on, and we get the benefit from Police Scotland training in how to interpret that. But can I give a hospital pass over to Aileen to give you a more detailed answer? Aileen?
Yeah, I think, Mary, it's a difficult one to reach everybody. Certainly the young folk that Cleland referred to, foundation apprentices, have done their bit in terms of animation and promoting the options for voting, polling station, postal and proxy. But what we do have, and Claire mentioned it as well, is we do have videos on our website, and that explains quite clearly, again, their animations of how to vote by post. The trick would be to make sure that everybody gets sight of that. So we have a Your Vote Counts campaign that we try to put out. It'll go out to schools, it'll go out to the minority groups that Cleland mentioned, etc., to try and promote it as best we can. But we're also relying on the sort of national bodies that Cleland spoke about as well, that we're complementing what's already out there. And nationally, there's some information on postal voting as well. So, yeah, it's really about us all doing our part, all of us as stakeholders in the election, to do our part to promote postal voting. But certainly I would direct young folk in South Lanarkshire to our website. The video is good, it explains about signature and date of birth. And as Cleland said, when it comes back, we're very good at knowing the sort of pen path and flow and things that are covered in the forensic training. And to echo what Cleland said as well earlier, that we're in the business of promoting democracy and not disenfranchising. So we're looking to be on their side and try to make sure that we understand where, you know, in favour of the voter, if we can at all possibly within the rules.
You kind of get a feel, Mary, that, I mean, as RO, eventually those doubtful postal ballots get run under my nose. Aileen's enormously experienced. I've done 5 or 6 electoral events now, and you do get a sense of where somebody's signatures change slightly, but you can see you can recognise the hand, etc., or something that's completely different. Yeah. Which gives you a concern. But the intent is, wherever there's a basis to do so legitimately, is to ensure that someone's ballot actually counts. Yeah. Okay,
no, that's really that's a lot of comfort there. I just know that my signature changed various times between the age of 16 and now, so I would hate for that to become a problem.
No, we you know, with the best will in the world, we do try to do that. It would need to be pretty evident that there's some fraud being perpetrated. Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands coming up. So, colleagues, if I can take from that the information has been helpful today, that it's clear to you. I'll just go back to the point, those who haven't done so yet, if you can consider getting papers in early, give us a chance to pre-check and make an appointment with Aileen's team to do the lodging. But we are here to help. If there's any questions or queries as a result of today's session, or from the information within the pack, come back to us. We'll try and answer it as quickly as possible. And failing that then, for those of you who do lodge, we would look forward to seeing you at the next briefing session. Is that okay, folks? Good. Thanks very much for attending today.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cleland.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Cleland.
Cheers.